morning. I hope everybody is well and you can hear me with this live broadcast this morning. It's a pleasure to be back. As if some of you have followed my journey of the last 2 weeks, you would have noticed that our trip in Bali was quite eventful and not necessarily in the most interesting way. However, I'm back. I'm back in Melbourne and quite happy to be joining you this morning. And for the espresso shot this morning, what I'll be doing is I want to share feedback on an event that I attended this weekend, because I think that a lot of speakers or people who are public communicators would experience the same types of challenges as the people that were on stage this weekend. And of course, my job is to have an opinion. So here we are. So I know that someone's joined me. I'm not sure who. If you want to pop in the comment box and say hello, that would be lovely. And I'll say hello personally to you. So here we go. So on Saturday, I attended a conference with Anita van Rooyen, who had invited me to a day with some people that on paper were really impressive. To be truthful, there was one speaker on that lineup that I really wanted to hear from. And her name is Randy Zuckerberg. And she's Mark Zuckerberg's sister. Mark, who is the founder of Facebook. Good morning, Ian and Judy. And so his sister Randy was invited to join Facebook in her capacity of digital marketing expert. And she ended up being the inventor or creator of Facebook Live, which we are currently using. And so this woman has quite a lot to be proud of in her life. And I was really, really looking forward to hearing what she had to say about being in business and being an entrepreneur, because after she'd spent about 10 years at Facebook, because she was acting in the entrepreneurial community and she was a big spokesperson for people who were in business, she decided to leave Facebook, walk her talk, and found her own company, which is, I believe, Zuckerberg Media. And she's quite successful, right? So she's a bulldozer of a woman, and she is an amazing, amazing business mind. So there you go. Long story short, I was besides myself having the opportunity to be second row in the same room with this woman. But unfortunately, her talk really underwhelmed me. And I'll share why, right? So I'm not sure it has to do with her specifically. I don't know if it's because she's a new person on the speaking circuit and she didn't really have her own speech, but basically another woman with a very small map of the world in terms of business experience interviewed Randy Zuckerberg, whose map of the world in business is probably one of the biggest maps I've ever seen. And the interview, of course, came out showing us just this much of Randy's map. So that's coach talk. So I'm sure that everybody gets what I'm talking about when I say that. So basically, I was so underwhelmed and disappointed because the expert hadn't been given the opportunity to shine. So this brings me to something that my mate Joel, my mentor Joel Bauer, has taught me, and I saw in action on Saturday. So I figured I'll let you guys know. If you ever accept to be interviewed by anybody about your topic of expertise, make sure that you prepare the questions. All right. So this is not arrogant. This is not a significance ego trip. This is about giving your audience, or the people who come to listen to you talk, this is about giving them the very best of you. And therefore, if you are preparing your own questions, then you can use the structure that we're going to learn together in Create a Product module, which is an amazingly well-built structure. Shush, guys. Sorry, the dogs are inside. And yeah, it's an amazingly well-built structure, and it really, really allows for, first of all, connection with the audience in a very genuine way. Then it allows for clarity in your message to be shared with them. And then it also allows for some practical tips and tricks, which is why an audience always tunes in. All right, guys, enough. Sorry, they sound like whales when they read. It's very funny. So I want to know who here is going to be interviewed or is planning on being interviewed in the next 3 months by someone else. Let me know if this is something that you want to be doing. If you're not, then I really highly recommend that you have a crack at getting yourself interviewed somewhere. I've done this a couple of times in the last few months, and it's really interesting. I did send some questions prior because I really wanted to make sure that, like there's one woman that we had a 15-minute interview together. And so I wanted to make sure that we covered what needed to be covered so that her audience would get value out of me being on her show. And also that I would have an opportunity to really share the essence of who I am, what I do, who I serve and all that. And then there's this other guy that I spent, I'd say about 90 minutes because he just wanted to chat. Like he has a far out, what do you call them? Podcast. I'm such an old woman. He has a podcast, and he just wanted to have a good old chat with someone who'd been successful in business multiple times. And so that's why we had a conversation together. Yeah. So, all right. So Cindy, you're planning on doing that. Samia, you said you have an interview coming up in a new generation coaches group. So this is great timing. Thank you. Okay, good. So I want to give you peace of mind with this process of providing the questions that they will ask you. Don't feel, and I know this is really bad in LP, but don't feel that you're being demanding, a princess, a prima donna, or any of those things. Don't feel that you're being arrogant. It's good manners, because we can't expect our hosts or our interviewers to know as much about our topic as we do. And we can't expect them to understand the pain points of the audience that we serve, and therefore they might not know which questions to ask for us to have the opportunity to really shine or to really share some of the most important things we should be sharing with the audience, their audience, our audience, whoever it is that we're out there to serve. All right, so that was the first thing. So the map of the world of how the interviewee appears is really always based on the map of the world and of the interviewer. So that was my first point. So let me just write that down. So map of the world of the interviewer dictates the content and the quality of the interview. There you go. All right, cool. So now the second thing that I want to share with you, and it's again feedback from my attendance on Saturday at an event which was ran by an international company that has a database of 10 million people, right? So they are, without a doubt, one of the biggest companies in the event world, on the speaker circuit. They put some people on like, hi Christina, they put some people on like Tony Robbins, like Robert Kiyosaki, they're the guys behind those big boys. And so Anita and I's expectations were really high. But it must have been one of their B circuit events, because it was really not. really not really good. And there's someone who does, well, sounds like he does the same thing as I do, or serves the same type of clientele and addresses the same types of pain points. And I'll tell you why I disconnected from listening to him. Although I'm passionate about the same challenges and I'm passionate about helping and serving the same types of people, so I should have been right into it. But I disconnected because there's something to be said about people who stay classy on the speaking circuit or in an environment like this one. I believe that it's really important to stay classy. And how does that manifest when you're addressing a crowd? Well, you can't go calling people stupid if they don't agree with you. I know that this sounds pretty straightforward and obvious, between us here, because I reckon the level of emotional intelligence on this broadcast is quite high. Hopefully I can be included in that too. But basically this guy said something like, if you don't agree with that, then that's because you're stupid. And within the first 3 minutes of him being on stage, he said something like that. And he made a few other statements along those lines during his talk, which was 75 minutes, which also appeared to have not really a structure, delivered zero value, was very poor in highlighting the successes of the people that he coaches. So we walked away looking at each other going, we've just wasted 75 minutes of our time. And so my message to you is, if you're going to be given the opportunity to speak to people, make sure you have something high quality to deliver, which means that regardless of the environment that you will be speaking to, or the people, the crowd, the audience that you'll be speaking to, always be delivering value. What does that look like? It doesn't have to be the absolute complete ins and out of your signature system. It can be one thing. I remember when I started with the Coaching Institute and being trained as a coach, in what they call their introduction weekend, which goes for 3 days, they explained to us what the map of the world means. And I remember the trainer saying that his very first talk that he gave in public settings was about the map of the world, and just explaining to people what that is and how it plays up and or plays out in our communication with people. And I remember thinking, that's a very simple concept, but I can totally see that if it's done properly, as he had just done with us in the training room, it can take 15, 20 minutes, to really, first of all, set up the context as to why you're talking about that, set up the context as to who it impacts, and then like what it is really in detail, and then how you can use that moving forward, right? So I thought it would have been nice on Saturday to have some sort of a structure that, specifically for this guy, right? Because I was more critical because he does the same thing as I do, right? So sorry about that. Yeah, animals have missed me because we've been away for 2 weeks. But the cat's no different, as you guys know. So so basically this guy who had a topic that I'm super passionate about didn't really have a structure to take us through some quality content, or to give us a teaser of, what kind of value he would bring to a mentoring relationship. And so when speakers say, now you can go to the back of the room and sign up, it was crickets. Yeah. So why am I even rambling on about that? Well, all of you are learning to invite people to take action after you've shared some information. You do that in the second call. You do that when you run a challenge. You do that when you invite people to sign up for your online course, for some of you who have. So you're forever inviting people to take action. That is the nature of what we do. And so we need to be really good. We need to be good in how we share value, how we guide people, and how we invite them to embrace the solution that we have. Which brings me to our third point. All right, so let me just write. Second point was around the value and quality of your message. All right, so the third point is, hold on, I've dropped it. That's what happens when you live with black mold for a while. Your concentration drops. I've totally lost it. This is hilarious. All right. It'll come back to me. And before it comes back, what I'd like to know is what you guys have thought about what I've shared so far. Does it make sense for you in terms of the way that we present ourselves and what we do and everything that we have to do to be successful in terms of communicating, whether it's for our audience, other audiences? How will that apply to you, what we've just discussed today? Go in the chat box or in the comment box and let me know how that applies to you, and I'll get my thoughts back and I'll be able to give you the third piece of what I wanted to give you this morning. All right, I'll give you a minute to write. All right. So as you guys are writing, I can see things coming up. I'll give you what I think is the third bit that I wanted to share this morning. The importance of connection, right? So the first speaker, when I walked in, he is one of the big names on the circuit. And so I was kind of hoping to be there. Oh, hello, Grace. I was kind of hoping to be there for his whole talk, because it does look like he's been trained by the same person I've been trained. But there's one thing that really, really didn't work. So this is feedback from what hasn't worked in order to help us do better, right? So it's important to look people in the eye when you talk to them. Eye contact in a room, regardless of the size of the room, is key. Because if you're looking on the ground or if you're looking at the chairs, you're not in the moment, you're not for the moment with the people. You're in your head, just talking at an audience, and you are completely missing the connection component. And I remember hearing that on The Voice, because we watched The Voice in this house. I remember hearing that a number of times, and Seal was banging on about that, telling these young people that they weren't connecting. Some of them had amazing voices, did great performances in terms of the vocal performance, but did not move the audience. And one of the reasons why they didn't move the audience was because they did not connect. They did not necessarily connect with the song, with the emotion of the song and the message of the song. And they did not connect with the actual people that they were singing to. So how does that apply to us? And why is it of key importance? Well, you can't be talking at people and expect that they will take action when you then invite them to take action. That doesn't work. And I know this is common sense, but I can see it so often. And because I've been pretty much on my back for the last 2 weeks because I was so out of it and unwell, I've watched several live broadcasts that you guys put in your groups, and some of them I've actually given you feedback, all of it by private message and messenger, but I've given you feedback on a number of things, whether it was the background that you had behind you, whether it was the way you stood, whether it was where you looked at when you delivered your message, whether it was the actual content or structure of your message. But this is one easy, important things to do. Yeah, because it's not content driven. You don't have to remember how to say it. You just have to do it. Looking at people, connecting with people. When I'm in a room, and those of you who've come to the walk and talk or who'll be there, I think it's next week, the next walk and talk on the 25th. So yeah, it's next Sunday, the walk and talk. So I really invite you, if you're in Melbourne, to join me in Port Melbourne for that walk and talk. One of the things that I do in any audience, if I'm live, if I'm in person, is I get off the stage and I get down in the audience and I look people in the eye to the point where I can comment on the color of their eyes, right? And I did that, I remember very vividly at the coaching college about a year and a half ago when we did a presentation. And because I'm so comfortable, right, and I love people, so I walk through the groups and I stop, and when I want to make a point, I actually speak to one person. Yeah, and when I speak to one person, I get so close that I can actually see their eye color, and I sometimes will make comments on their eye color. Yeah, and I will touch shoulders or I'll touch an arm, because that connection makes it real. And if I touch one person in the room, it's as if I was touching the whole room, right? So it's really important to take the time to connect. Now, how does that translate when you're online? Well, as much as you can, look in a camera when you're delivering a message, people know or feel that you're looking at them when you're looking at the camera, right? And so that's one of the tricks that I would like you to employ. The second thing is when you have a group scenario, like we have in our Tuesday live mentoring sessions together, make sure that when you are answering questions, you take the time to listen and ask clarifying questions to the person who you're interacting with, so that you are providing them with the best answer when you provide an answer or you're sharing content specifically with that person. So what I'm saying is take your time to have the conversation with that one person, because when you serve one person well, you create a welcoming environment for the whole community that you're serving. Okay. And that is one of the intangibles that people pick up on, and they either feel welcome and they come in and they participate, or they don't, and then you never see them again. Okay, and they disconnect, and when people disconnect, then we lose them. Which brings me to my fourth point. All right, so the third one, and I'm actually gonna make sure I remember this time. So the third one was connection, which brings me to the fourth point, right? There are two important things in business or in the customer service cycle. There's onboarding, so the sale, and then there is retention. 50% of the efforts need to be put on acquiring, 50% of the efforts need to be put on keeping. Why am I talking about that now? A lot of you are ramping up. You're in a phase where if you've nailed 0 to 5K and you are making over 3 grand, 4 grand, sometimes 5, 6, 7, 8 grand a week, you're now starting to think, what's the next thing? So I want to leverage my time. And by leveraging your time, you mean I want to have some sort of an online product or a pre-recorded sequence that doesn't need my time in order to serve the people, or is used in combination with other means of connection, like what I do, which is the ESPRESSO shots or the live mentoring sessions in a group format, right? So in order for that to be successful, there has to be equal amount of energy invested on acquiring new people and retaining existing people, right? Now, tell me, does that make sense to you? In terms of some sort of a business perspective, do acquisition and retention sound as important as each other? Is there anything else you would want me to talk about around the retention part? Right, so I know that we have a bit of a delay when I ask questions. So I've got a thumbs up. Beautiful. So that makes sense. Thank you for the thumbs up. It does give me a bit of an indication as to if what I'm saying resonates with you, or if it's off topic for you. But I have to say, yeah, in the business that I had built with Mark in our first year, we onboarded 216 people, and in the first 7 months of our business, it was a very, very large chunk of my personal responsibility to do the retention, and we had a 95% retention rate, which means that only 5 people out of 100 who signed up with us in the first 7 months did not continue with us for various reasons, and 3 of them were, I remember, because we put out a program that was too advanced for where everybody was starting. So that was the Ascension program. And so once we realized, after 3 months of having 3 clients in the Ascension program, once we realized that all of them, despite the fact that they were happy to give us a whole lot more money, all of them needed the basics. And so we went back to the basic programs, which in our case were Build a Movement and the 0 to 5K, and eventually the Creator Product Module. So tips on retention. All right, well, look, for me, because we had 100 people, well, in the first 6 months, about 100 people, pretty much all on payment plans and stuff, I had a very, very strict routine, which was that every single week I would reconcile the payments with the client accounts to see if everybody was keeping on track with their obligations. And if they weren't, then I would first send them an email. So just an email saying, hey, you've missed your payment this week. I'm rescheduling it for tomorrow. So can you please make sure that there will be some funds in the account? Because I use a system, it's called B-Point, it's with the bank, and it allows me to put payments through when people have authorized me to do that with their credit card. And so that's how I would do it. I would send an email. And then if I didn't get a response, then I would actually get on the phone and speak to people. And what I've also experienced in those follow-up conversations was that I got to know people so much better, because I wasn't at the front end of sales. I was in the back end. I was everything retention, service, tech. So admin, blah, blah, the whole lot, right? So it was interesting to sometimes meet some of these people for the first time, some of our clients for the first time, and to really get to know them. And I remember having some very deep coaching conversations around people's mindsets as entrepreneurs in those very private, in those very, very private conversations. So there you go. So one of the tips is to be consistent. So I'm going to write it, for retention, consistency. So what that means for me is once a week, reconcile the accounts, then send an email if unpaid, and then a call. Okay, so that's the first thing for me for retention. You need to be consistent. The second thing is you also have to have a very clear policy, okay? Because everybody has a story. Everybody has their own lives happening, and therefore they have very good reasons for not paying you when they don't. And you can't just make up rules as you go when you're a business. You have to have a policy. And that's when I decided to get my friend who's a lawyer, Katie, to write our terms, conditions, policies in a way that made sense for the business and of course for our clients and for ourselves to enforce. And so we have terms of use, and those terms of use are really important because they give us the structure to have the conversations with people. So a policy, in my case, it's called terms of use. And yeah, always make sure that whatever you do for one person, you have to be prepared to do for everybody. Right? So how do you manage this when you're a sole trader? Because right now I am, right? I'm it. As I'm going to rebuild, I'm starting from scratch. Same place as you guys when you start, right? So I have to do everything, just like you have to do everything. What I've decided to do in order to stay sane and to be able to do everything is to follow a structure. So in my diary or in my calendar, in my Google Calendar, as you would have seen in the files that I shared a while back, actually, as we founded the group, I shared my calendar. So what I did was I allocated every minute of every day to a specific task. Sometimes it means that I have to leave my calendar open for people appointments, and therefore my appointments in Google are free, as in people can book themselves in there. And the other bits, I'm just busy, right? So my booking app sees that I'm busy. And so that's how you can manage your time as a sole trader or as a solopreneur, as I call you, in order to fit in all the tasks. How do you go about that? Big rocks first. So money-making things first, then the retention tasks second, which are the pebbles, and then your sand, which is usually your admin or whatever else. And in retention, there's service, there's support, there's chasing up the money. Yeah. So big rocks make money, pebbles, retention, chasing money, service, and then your sand would be your admin, whatever, and then your water is all the nice to have or the new developments that you might want to be putting together. So there you go. So everybody, this is the espresso shot. I don't want to go any longer than 30 minutes because I have promised everybody that I wouldn't keep you any more than 30 minutes. And so I will stick to my word. I hope that you have found some value in our conversation today. And I look forward to seeing your thoughts on what we've shared, and I will see you tomorrow in our live session. All right? Love you very much, everybody. See you soon. Bye.